But let's throw to Andrew now and get his perspective. I mean, I imagine your perspective is even different.
Well, I suppose the issue for us is always around the workplace, and for my union, and I think for many other unions, the issue of violence in the workplace is a specific one. I'm of the view that violence is done to women in the workplace not just by the physical act of aggression, but also by harassment and bullying. Harassment and bullying is unfortunately rife in Australian workplaces. Over 24% of women say that they have been harassed or bullied in the workplace, and that can be verbal, and it can go up to and include rape, which has unfortunately occurred. For my union, we've learnt by bitter experience, both in the workplace but also internally, that we need to have very strong policies and, more importantly, actions to ensure that women are protected in the workplace. We developed our own internal policy as a result of, about 20 years ago, one official, female official of the union, being assaulted by a male official of the union. We did not have at the time a strong policy. Of course, we always profess equality. We always say and have said for many years, utilising the language that's been current for about 20 years, but for longer than that, that harassment and bullying is unacceptable. But when it came to actually doing something about it in the workplace, in fact in our own workplace, we just did not know how to deal with it. The result of that assault was, after many court cases, that the perpetrator was finally sacked and expelled from the union. But we had to do that through basically trial and error, and those errors were made by a union which, as I said, holds itself out as a beacon of equality, and one which professes equality in the workplace, in the community and in the nation. And so we've had to learn by bitter experience that those sort of things can't just be dealt with by slogans. We do have a slogan which I think is important in terms of violence against women, and that is, an injury to one is an injury to all. In my view, an injury to one woman is an injury to all people, all workers at the very least, because what we have is an inability, I think, to conceptualise that injury. As I say, you injure somebody, you do violence to somebody by bullying and harassing them. You don't actually have to physically touch them or make them, put them in fear of a physical act for that to encompass violence. And it's my view, and I've got to say proudly, after that extreme trial and error, that it is also the view of my union that it is simply unacceptable for workers or employers to perpetrate violence in any form against workers, and especially against women workers, because, as I say, we've got to have the view that an injury to one is an injury to all.
Do you find that attitudes haven't changed over the past few years? I mean, I would have assumed that perhaps they have, and that what you're talking about, maybe, the bullying and the harassment is a cross-gender issue.
Yes, it is.
Do the women, are they targeted more than the men in the workplace for those sorts of issues, for bullying and harassment?
Well, yes, they are, and I speak, as the Secretary of the Australian Manufacturing Workers Union, and manufacturing in this country is exceedingly gender segmented. With the exception of clothing and food, the manufacturing industry is overwhelmingly male. My union has, at its base, membership in the metal industry and in the printing and vehicle industries. They are, whether we like it or not, predominantly and overwhelmingly male. And my union's makeup is representative of that. We're 94% male here in Queensland, mainly tradespeople like boilermakers and fitters and mechanics. But I was very heartened to respond specifically to your question, that the other day my state council is our committee of management. It meets every quarter, and there's some pretty buffy blokes on that state council, as you can imagine. They're elected from the membership. And one of those state councillors, a delegate, when an issue about women, unequal treatment of women was raised, because we'd in fact found that there was that the Industrial Relations Commission, or as it's now called, Fair Work Australia, was incapable of dealing with somebody. Ted, Boilermaker, convener of shop stewards up in Gladstone, so you can imagine he does it pretty tough. He said, "I can't believe that this sort of discrimination still exists in Australia. Women deserve a fair go regardless." So, I mean, the message has got out there. You know, big buffy blokes who work 12-hour days and have got the capacity to build, you know, cars, refineries, and what have you, who take pride in their trade and you know, see themselves as in no way diminished by having women in the union, also see that it's important that women are able to operate in a situation, in a workplace which is harassment free and is also capable of realising the aspirations of those women workers. Because if we do violence to women in the workplace, it diminishes all of us, and they see that. And I think it's really important that the lessons of, you know, my union's been around since 1852, and we see that it is absolutely crucial that we, as a union movement, see that women's business is central to what we do. And unless we actually have a harassment and bullying-free zone where violence against women is not acceptable, that we diminish ourselves, and we're also, I must say, not as productive as we should be. You know, so it's a virtuous circle.
Yep. Michael, in your opinion, what causes the violence against women? Where does it stem from? Is it a power thing? What do you see it as?
Yeah, you know, I think it's a result of several things happening at once together. As the core of the analysis developed by women activists and scholars over the past 30 years has focused on the use of violence as a mechanism of power and control. So just like I might, you know, use a hammer to put something together, an individual guy will use violence. He may be someone who, you know, you see him on the street, you see him at your social work, or social group, or the golf course, and he's just a perfectly fine person. But he's selectively using violence in his relationship to maintain his power, just like in your example, where the man, you know, felt that he had the right to have someone cooking for him. But, you know, my response to that man is cook your own food if you don't. But, you know, he felt he had the right, and then he's using violence to maintain his power. So that's been the core of the analysis. The bizarre thing at the same time, and I think that's true, you know, it's also about the permission as a society that we allow the violence to continue. We don't have adequate laws. We don't implement the laws. We say that violence is a private or personal matter. It's a family matter. We just turn our eyes. We give that permission. But at the same time as those things, one of the strange things is that even though, you know, we could have a discussion here and talk about all the ways that our society is still a male-dominated society, where men still have more power than women, if you were to go out onto the streets of Brisbane and ask individual men about, you know, sir, tell me about all of your power, you know, blokes would look at you like you're crazy. They say, I don't have power. You know, I don't make enough money. I don't, you know, I'm not, you know, strong enough. My kids boss me around. I mean, I don't have power. And we have to get at this very strange paradox of masculinity. And that is that we raise boys to be men with a set of impossible expectations. None of us can live up to them because we're supposed to be, you know, always strong, always tough, always in control. You know, no feelings, of course. I mean, I've never had feelings, but I understand that it's a, you know, possibility. We're not supposed to have feelings. You know, we're supposed to be, yeah, you know, on and on. And we can't live up to this. And so for some men walk around with this dialogue of self-doubt about living up to the expectations of manhood. And so how do they prove to themselves, how do they prove to women, to other men that they're real men? Well, their trump card is violence. So we have this strange combination of using violence to enact, as a mechanism to control someone, but also using it as a mechanism to try to deal with your own insecurities. It's a really deadly combination. So I think it comes out of the ways that we raise boys to be men, combined with the fact that we live in male-dominated societies. So whenever you have a society based on the power of one group over another, violence becomes a means for that group that has power to maintain their power over the other group.
Just take you back to something you said before. You said that, you know, that we as a society allow the violence to happen. Do we really as a community allow it to happen? Or is it more that it's actually hidden, that women are afraid for whatever reason, to come forward and to report it, thinking maybe that nothing would happen if they did. But is it really, is it a hidden, is it a secretive thing?
You know, I think you're right. I mean, I think both those things are true. Particularly when we think of wife assault, you know, there's to a certain degree, it is hidden. It's in the home. Sexual assault tends to be hidden. But it's one of those sort of open secrets. I mean, neighbors hear things. Women come to work, you know, with bruises and black eyes, and you know the story again about how clumsy she is. Women, you know, go to speak to their priest or minister, and you know, people know, people find out. I mean, here in Queensland, your police officers can go to the scene of a violent crime, that is, where a woman has been beaten up, and not arrest anyone. You know, for me, that's giving permission. Because here your law says that the woman has to press charges. Well, this is pretty wild. You know, she's standing there with a guy who's going to beat the crap out of her if she says anything, and she's got to say, "Oh yeah, I'm pressing charges against you." So that's what I mean by permission. So yes, it is hidden, but it's you know, for too long it's been an open secret.